Hi, Mike Baker here. I'm still out in the desert. It's an amazing trek into a great cause, raising awareness for the UK's Special Forces Benevolent Fund. While I'm gone, Mike Slater is stepping in to deliver the President's daily brief.
Thanks, Mike. It's Friday, 17 January 2025. Welcome back to the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. Mike Slater filling in for Mike Baker. Let's get briefed. Today, President-elect Donald Trump is urging Israel to keep their fragile ceasefire agreement with Hezbollah and Lebanon from falling apart, just as the Israeli Security Cabinet votes to approve the breakthrough ceasefire deal with Hamas in Gaza. Later in the show, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a ruling Friday upholding the law requiring China-based ByteDance to divest its ownership of TikTok by Sunday or face a ban. President Joe Biden has already said he won't enforce the ban in his last day in office, leaving the fate of the popular app in the hands of President-elect Donald Trump. But first, today's afternoon spotlight. As momentum builds behind finalizing the breakthrough ceasefire agreement in Gaza, advisors to President-elect Donald Trump have reportedly warned Israel not to let their fragile truce with Hezbollah in Lebanon collapse. The warning comes as senior Israeli officials have indicated in recent days that the Israeli military will remain in southern Lebanon beyond the current 60-day ceasefire. Leaders in Jerusalem have been highly critical of the Lebanese army, saying they're not moving fast enough to deploy their forces to a buffer zone along their border with Israel, according to an exclusive report from the Jerusalem Post. The remarks have raised concerns in Washington and within Trump's transition team, particularly given the fact negotiators just finalized a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, something that took some 15 months of bloody conflict to achieve. Trump's senior national security advisors reportedly conveyed their warning earlier this week, simply telling Jerusalem, quote, "We don't want the ceasefire agreement in Lebanon to collapse." Officials in Washington are nervous that failures in Lebanon could throw the entire region back into chaos. As a reminder, Israel reached a limited truce with Hezbollah on November 27th to stop hostilities for at least 60 days. The deal requires the withdrawal of Israeli troops from Lebanon and for Hezbollah to retreat north beyond the Litani River in southern Lebanon. In theory, by January 26th, the only groups allowed to be present south of the Litani River are the Lebanese military and UN peacekeeping forces. But Israel and Hezbollah have repeatedly accused each other of violating the terms of the agreement and have engaged in a number of tit-for-tat strikes since the ceasefire was implemented. The Israeli defense minister recently said Hezbollah has yet to dismantle all of their weapons and terrorist infrastructure south of the river, and he says they haven't withdrawn their fighters. He has warned, quote, "If Hezbollah does not withdraw beyond the Litani River, there will be no agreement." Turning to the other ceasefire, the Israeli Security Cabinet officially voted Friday to approve the truce agreement with Hamas in Gaza, and the full cabinet is expected to sign off on the ceasefire later today. While the diplomatic breakthrough came on Wednesday, its ratification in Israel was briefly delayed after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accused Hamas on Thursday of making last-minute demands that went back on some of their promises. But that hurdle has been now cleared, meaning the ceasefire should go into effect on Sunday. As we've been tracking here on the PDB, the initial 6 weeks of the three-phase agreement will halt fighting and see Hamas release 33 Israeli hostages, including American nationals, in exchange for Israel freeing 1,000 Palestinian detainees who were not implicated in the 7 October 23 terror attacks. The hostages will be released incrementally, starting with 3 on Sunday, followed by weekly releases until all 33 are freed. Additionally, Israeli forces will begin gradually withdrawing from densely populated centers and facilitate the return of displaced Palestinians to northern Gaza. The second phase would include a permanent ceasefire and Israel's complete withdrawal from Gaza, though it's going to be a long road to reach that stage, particularly given ongoing infighting within Jerusalem's halls of power. The national security minister announced Thursday that his far-right party will withdraw from Netanyahu's ruling coalition if this ceasefire deal moves forward. He's staunchly opposed to any negotiations with Hamas, even if they free the remaining hostages in Gaza. Other hardliners within Netanyahu's governing coalition have also threatened to resign over the ceasefire, potentially threatening his party's majority in Israel's parliamentary body. But for now, Netanyahu is plowing ahead, and an official for his party hit back at hardliners on Thursday, stating, quote, "Anyone who dissolves the right-wing government will be remembered as an eternal disgrace." Coming up next, we'll discuss the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling on TikTok and what it means for the future of the popular China-based app in America. More on that after the break. Welcome back to the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. I'm Mike Slater, filling in for Mike Baker. After much anticipation, the U.S. Supreme Court handed down their ruling on TikTok today, upholding a bipartisan law requiring China-based ByteDance to divest its ownership of the app by Sunday or face a ban from U.S. markets. ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, has so far refused to sell the popular social media app. In a unanimous decision, the court sided with arguments made by the Biden administration that the app left the communications and data of Americans vulnerable to foreign adversaries, namely China, according to a report from CNBC. As a reminder, the law in question, dubbed the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversaries Controlled Applications Act, passed with widespread bipartisan support in Congress last April, and it was then signed into law by President Biden. The act gave ByteDance until January 19th, 2025, to find an independent buyer for TikTok or be removed from American app stores. The 19th is Sunday. It's a rather unprecedented situation. A U.S. law has never previously targeted a social media company for shutdown, let alone one as large as TikTok, which is estimated to have some 170 million users in America. But the justices said that the U.S. government was justified in signaling out TikTok given its connections to China's CCP, saying the app is, quote, scale and susceptibility to foreign adversary control, together with the vast swaths of sensitive data the platform collects, justifies differential treatment. As we've covered previously on the PDB, TikTok has long drawn scrutiny over its ties to the CCP, accused of being used by the regime to spread disinformation to United States users. Under Chinese cybersecurity laws, the company is also required to share all user data with the CCP upon request, potentially allowing the communist regime to mine the data of Americans. ByteDance was challenging the constitutionality of the law on First Amendment grounds, but the court was not having it when they can balance national security concerns. The Supreme Court's opinion stated, quote, there is no doubt that for more than 170 million Americans, TikTok offers a distinctive and expansive outlet for expression, means of engagement, and source of community. But Congress has determined that divestiture is necessary to address its well-supported national security concerns regarding TikTok's data collection practices and relationship with a foreign adversary. Now, despite the Biden administration's support for the law last year, President Biden has since had a slight change of heart. He had reportedly been exploring options in recent days to keep TikTok available in the United States, should the ban proceed. Biden apparently faced pressure from leaders in Silicon Valley who have argued that the law is a threat to free speech, according to a report from the Washington Post. Following the news from the Supreme Court, the White House press secretary said that President Biden believes, quote, TikTok should remain available to Americans, but punted the issue of enforcement to the incoming Trump administration. Separately, an unnamed White House official said President Biden would not instruct his Justice Department to begin enforcing the law, given the fact that Biden will be exiting the White House on Monday, leaving TikTok's fate squarely in the hands of President Trump. As we discussed on the morning's PDB, Trump, who tried to ban TikTok during his first term, is considering paths to keep it operating in the United States. Trump made saving TikTok a campaign promise and has praised the app for helping him connect to young voters during the 2024 election cycle. He even invited TikTok's chief executive to attend his inauguration as an honored guest. According to some reports, he will likely issue an executive order when he takes office that would suspend enforcement of the law for 60 to 90 days, giving ByteDance and his administration more time to negotiate a sale. And that is the PDB Afternoon Bulletin for Friday, 17 January. It's going to be an exciting week next week with the start of President Trump's new administration. To listen to the show ad-free, you can become a premium member of the President's Daily Brief by visiting pdbpremium.com. I'm Mike Slater, host of the podcast Politics by Faith, also host of the morning show on Sirius XM Patriot. We'll be back on Monday. Until then, stay safe and spread the word.